Elena Parker balanced 3 paper bags of Thai food against her hip as she navigated the gleaming marble lobby of the Blackwood Tower. The late afternoon sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Her weathered sneakers squeaked against the immaculate surface, a jarring reminder that she didn't belong in this temple of wealth and power. "Delivery for Suite 1200, she told the security guard, a mountain of a man with a surprisingly gentle smile. "Mr. Blackwood's office," he nodded, checking her credentials. "Take the express elevator. Marcus will show you up." Elena followed a uniformed attendant into a private elevator that shot upward with barely a whisper. Her stomach lurched, partly from the rapid ascent and partly from nerves. In her 3 years as a delivery driver for Golden Spoon, she'd never set foot in the notorious Blackwood Tower, headquarters of Blackwood Industries and home to its equally notorious CEO, Peter Blackwood. At 28, Elena's life had settled into a comfortable, if unexciting, routine. Delivering food by day, taking online classes in business management by night, and spending weekends with her small but loyal circle of friends. Dating had taken a back seat after her last relationship ended in spectacular fashion when her ex chose Elena's birthday dinner to announce he was moving to Seattle with his work friend Jennifer. The elevator doors slid open to reveal a reception area where minimalist furniture and abstract art created an atmosphere of understated luxury. A sleek desk dominated the space, behind which sat a woman with a platinum blonde bob and rimless glasses. "Food delivery for Mr. Blackwood," Elena announced, shifting the increasingly heavy bags. The receptionist, her nameplate read Vivian Wright, barely glanced up from her computer. "Set it on the credenza. Mr. Blackwood is in a meeting." Eleanor placed the bags as directed, arranged the containers inside for easy access, and was turning to leave when a door burst open. A tall man with disheveled dark hair strode in, his tailored charcoal suit contrasting with his harried expression. "Vivian, please tell me the Nakamura contracts are—" He stopped abruptly, noticing Elena. For a moment they simply stared at each other. Peter Blackwood was even more striking in person than in the occasional business magazine photos Elena had seen. Intense blue eyes, strong jawline, and a presence that seemed to electrify the air around him. Yet something about him looked different, vulnerable perhaps. The bags under his eyes suggested sleepless nights, and the tension in his shoulders spoke of burdens Elena could only imagine. "The food," he said, as if remembering why she was there. "Thank you. Did Vivian take care of the payment?" "All settled through the app," Eleanor replied, finding her voice. "Enjoy your pad thai. The chef added extra lime just like you requested." Something flickered across Peter's face, surprise perhaps that she'd noticed this detail. "You're not the usual delivery person." "Jake's out with the flu. I'm covering his downtown route this week." Peter nodded, then seemed about to dismiss her when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and Elena watched as his expression darkened. His shoulders tensed, his jaw tightened, and for a brief moment, something like panic flashed in his eyes. "Everything okay?" The question slipped out before Elena could stop herself. It wasn't her place to ask a billionaire CEO about his problems. To her surprise, Peter didn't snap at her or ignore the question. Instead, he looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing a possibility she couldn't fathom. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elena Parker." "Elena Parker," he repeated, as if testing how the name felt. "Do you have another delivery right now?" She checked her phone. "Not for another 30 minutes. Peter's expression shifted into something calculating yet desperate. "I have a proposition for you, Ms. Parker, one that would be financially beneficial and wouldn't take much of your time." Elena raised an eyebrow, immediately suspicious. "I'm just here to deliver food, Mr. Blackwood." "It's not." He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. "It's not what you're thinking. I need someone to pretend to be my girlfriend, just for one evening." Oh, of all the things Elena had expected him to say, this wasn't even on the list. She laughed, certain he was joking, but his expression remained deadly serious. "You want me?" A delivery driver you just met to pretend to be your girlfriend. Why would a man like you need to hire a fake date? Peter glanced at Vivian, who was pretending not to listen while typing furiously. Perhaps we should discuss this in my office. Curiosity overrode caution, and Elena followed him through heavy double doors into a corner office with panoramic views of the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased San Francisco's skyline, the Bay Bridge glittering in the distance. The space was surprisingly warm. Leather-bound books lined one wall, a vintage record player occupied a corner, and family photos sat on a credenza behind an imposing desk. "Please, sit." Peter gestured to a leather chair opposite his desk. Elena remained standing. "I have 28 minutes before my next delivery. Explain why Peter Blackwood, heir to one of the largest tech fortunes in America, needs to hire a fake girlfriend." Peter sighed, dropping his professional facade. He suddenly looked tired, human. "There's a charity gala tonight at the Fairmont. The Blackwood Foundation is a major donor, and I'm expected to attend. My ex-fiancée will be there with her new boyfriend, a vice president at our biggest competitor." "And you want to make her jealous?" Elena asked, unimpressed. "No," Peter said firmly. "I want to avoid becoming tabloid fodder again." He slid a tablet across the desk. On screen was a gossip blog with the headline, "Blackwood, ear still heartbroken. Sources say Peter can't move on after Sophia's betrayal." "These stories have been circulating for months," he continued. "It's affecting business. Investors don't like drama, and competitors use it to suggest I'm emotionally unstable. If I show up alone tonight, it feeds the narrative. If I bring a date who seems genuinely interested in me, it changes the story." Elena scanned the article, noting several unflattering photos of Peter looking tense and unhappy at various events. "Why me? Don't you have actress friends or socialites who could play this role? Anyone in my social circle would be recognized immediately and people would know it was staged. He hesitated, authentic, not part of that world. And you notice the extra lime in my pad thai. You pay attention to details. That's a pretty thin basis for choosing someone to be your fake girlfriend," Eleanor pointed out. Peter ran a hand through his hair again, a nervous habit she was beginning to realize. "I'm also desperate and short on time. The gala starts in 3 hours. What exactly would this involve?" "Accompany me to the gala. Engage in small talk. Act like we're in the early stages of dating. Interested in each other, but not overly affectionate. I'll have a car pick you up, provide appropriate attire, and pay you $5,000 for the evening." Eleanor nearly choked. $5,000? For one night of pretending to like you? A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, the first she'd seen. "Is the pretending to like me part worth extra?" Despite herself, Elena laughed. "It might be. Depends how difficult you make it." Peter's smile widened slightly, revealing a dimple in his left cheek. "Fair enough. So what do you say, Miss Parker? Will you be my date tonight?" Elena should say no. This was crazy. People like her didn't mingle with billionaires at charity galas. And yet, $5,000 would cover next semester's tuition with enough left over to finally fix her car's transmission. "No kissing," she said firmly. "No touching below the shoulders. And I reserve the right to leave if things get weird." Peter looked relieved. "Agreed. And I'll add that you can back out at any point if you're uncomfortable, no questions asked, and still receive the full payment. And yes, Mr. Blackwood, I'll be your fake girlfriend for the evening." "Peter," he corrected. "If we're dating, you should call me Peter." "Peter," she nodded. "I need to finish my shift. What's the plan?" "Give Vivian your address and measurements. I'll have a dress and accessories delivered to your home by 6. A car will pick you up at 7. The gala starts at 8. "Wait, measurements? I'm not wearing anything too revealing." Peter looked mildly offended. "I wouldn't suggest it. The gala is a formal affair. You'll need an evening gown, but nothing inappropriate." Eleanor provided her information to Vivian, acutely aware of how strange this situation was. As she prepared to leave, Peter walked her to the elevator. "One more thing," he said, his voice low. "Why did you agree?" "Besides the money," Elena considered the question. Curiosity, maybe, or perhaps I'm just a sucker for a good story. She stepped into the elevator. See you tonight, Peter. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of his expression, thoughtful, with something that might have been genuine interest. 3 hours later, Eleanor stood before her bathroom mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The dress that had arrived was a deep emerald that complemented her olive skin and dark hair. The design was elegant rather than revealing, cap sleeves, a modest neckline, and a fitted bodice that flowed into a floor-length skirt with a subtle slit. The package had also included strappy silver heels, a matching clutch, and a simple silver necklace. Her roommate Jess sat on the closed toilet lid, still in shock. Let me get this straight. You delivered pad thai to Peter Blackwood, actual billionaire Peter Blackwood, and now you're his date to a fancy gala? Fake date, Elena corrected, applying mascara. It's just business. Business that pays $5,000 for one night. Jess shook her head in disbelief. That's more than I make in a month teaching kindergarten. It's a one-time thing, Elena insisted. Tomorrow I go back to delivering noodles, and he goes back to whatever billionaires do. A text notification lit up her phone. The car is outside. Peter. Jess peeked through the blinds. Holy crap, it's a Rolls-Royce, with a driver in a suit. Eleanor took a deep breath, suddenly nervous. How do I look? Jess turned to her, expression softening. Like Cinderella going to the ball. Wrong fairy tale, Elena muttered. Cinderella fell in love with the prince. And you're immune to charming billionaires? He's not charming, Elena lied, remembering that dimple. And this isn't a fairy tale. It's a business transaction with an expiration date of midnight. The ride to the Fairmont Hotel was surreal. The leather seats of the Rolls-Royce were butter-soft, and a glass partition separated Elena from the driver. San Francisco glittered outside the windows as they climbed Nob Hill. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from Peter. I'll meet you at the entrance. Remember, we've been dating for 3 weeks. We met through mutual friends. As the car pulled up to the historic hotel, Elena's confidence wavered. What was she doing here? She was about to step into a world she knew nothing about, full of people who would immediately sense she didn't belong. The driver opened her door, offering his hand. Miss Parker, Mr. Blackwood is waiting. And there he was, at the top of the carpeted stairs, looking like he'd stepped out of a James Bond film, in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. When he saw her, something shifted in his expression. Surprise, followed by what seemed like genuine appreciation. Elena, he said as she reached him, his voice warm. You look beautiful. For a moment, she almost believed him. Then she remembered this was all an act. Ready to put on a show? She asked quietly. Peter offered his arm. Actually, I think I might enjoy this evening after all. As they walked through the ornate doors of the Fairmont, Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into something far more complicated than a simple pretend date. Little did she know how right she was. The Fairmont's grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the glitter of San Francisco's elite. Elena felt eyes tracking her as Peter guided her through the crowd, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back. People are staring, she whispered. That's the point, Peter replied, leaning close to her ear. You're with the notorious Peter Blackwood. Act natural but happy. A waiter offered champagne, which Elena gratefully accepted. So who exactly am I supposed to be impressing? Before Peter could answer, a slender woman in a red gown approached, her smile calculated. Peter, darling, I was beginning to think you wouldn't show. Sophia. Peter nodded coolly. You remember the foundation means everything to my family. Elena instantly recognized the ex-fiancé from the tabloid photos. Up close, Sophia was even more stunning. Flawless skin, expertly highlighted blonde hair, and the confident posture of someone born into privilege. Aren't you going to introduce us? Sophia's gaze swept over Elena, assessing her worth in seconds. Of course. Sophia Westbrook, this is Elena Parker, my girlfriend. Elena extended her hand with a warmth she didn't feel. Lovely to meet you. Peter mentions you occasionally. Sophia's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. Does he? How unexpected. And what is it you do, Elena? Before she could answer honestly, Peter interjected. Elena's in the food distribution business. We met through James Collins. You remember him from business school? Food distribution? How fascinating, Sophia replied, clearly thinking it was anything but. And how long have you two been involved? 3 weeks, Elena answered, remembering their cover story. But it feels like I've known Peter forever. She placed her hand on his arm, feeling his muscles tense, then relax under her touch. Well, isn't that sweet? Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. Do excuse me. I see the Vandermeers just arrived. As Sophia glided away, Elena exhaled. She seems delightful. Peter's laugh was unexpected, genuine and deep. You handled that perfectly. For the next hour, Elena played her role with increasing confidence. Peter introduced her to tech moguls, venture capitalists and philanthropists. She spoke honestly about her business studies, carefully omitting the delivery aspect of her food distribution career. You're a natural, Peter murmured as they moved between conversations. Everyone's charmed. Eleanor found herself enjoying the charade more than expected. Peter was surprisingly attentive, refilling her champagne, guiding conversations away from uncomfortable topics, even remembering she'd mentioned a shellfish allergy when declining certain appetizers. As dinner began, they were seated with the Blackwood Foundation board members. Eleanor found herself beside an elderly gentleman who introduced himself as Howard Blackwood, Peter's grandfather. So you're the young lady who's put the smile back on my grandson's face, Howard said, eyes twinkling. Eleanor glanced at Peter, who was engaged in conversation across the table. We haven't been dating long. Time is irrelevant in matters of the heart, Howard replied. I knew my Elizabeth was the one after our first dance, 62 years together before she left me. Eleanor softened. I'm sorry for your loss. She's still with me, Howard patted his chest. Now tell me, what attracted you to my grandson? Besides the obvious. Eleanor thought carefully. He's more than he appears to be. There's depth beneath the corporate image. Howard studied her. Interesting. Most see the name and the fortune first. Money's just paper, Elena shrugged. It doesn't keep you warm at night. Howard chuckled. I like you, Elena Parker. Peter needs someone who sees him, not his bank account. The conversation shifted as the foundation director announced the evening's fundraising totals. Elena watched Peter deliver a brief, eloquent speech about the foundation's work with underprivileged children. There was genuine passion in his voice that surprised her. Later, as a string quartet played, Peter led her to the dance floor. I should warn you, I'm not a great dancer, Elena admitted. Just follow my lead. He placed one hand on her waist, taking her hand with the other. My mother insisted on ballroom lessons, said no son of hers would embarrass the family name by stumbling around at galas. As they moved across the floor, Elena found herself relaxing into his guidance. Your grandfather is wonderful. He likes you, Peter said. That's rare. He usually terrifies my dates with interrogations about their intentions. Maybe because he thinks I'm not after your money. Peter studied her face. Aren't you? $5,000 for one evening suggests otherwise. Eleanor tensed. That was your offer, not my request. I don't care about your wealth, Peter. This is a job, nothing more. Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment. Of course. Just business. The evening continued smoothly until Elena excused herself to the ladies' room. As she washed her hands, Sophia emerged from a stall. Having fun playing princess for the night? Sophia asked, reapplying her lipstick. I'm having a lovely evening, thank you, Elena replied coolly. You know it won't last. Sophia turned to face her. Peter doesn't belong with someone like you. He needs a partner who understands his world. Someone like you mean? Yet he ended things. Sophia's smile turned vicious. You don't know anything about Peter or what happened between us. But you will. The scandal's just beginning. What scandal? Ask your boyfriend about Valencia Technologies and the missing prototype. See if he's still charming when his company's imploding and federal agents are knocking." Before Elena could respond, Sophia sauntered out, leaving her confused and unsettled. When she returned to Peter, a tall man in an expensive suit was speaking to him in hushed, urgent tones. Peter's face had gone pale. "Everything okay?" Elena asked as the man walked away. "We need to leave," Peter said tersely. "Now." In the car, Peter sat rigid, staring at his phone. "I apologize for cutting the evening short." "Is it about Valencia Technologies?" Elena asked. Peter's head snapped up. "What did you say?" Sophia mentioned something about Valencia and a missing prototype. His expression darkened. "Sophia needs to learn when to keep her mouth shut." He sighed, seeming to make a decision. "Valencia is a competitor. There are allegations that Blackwood stole proprietary technology from them. It's all lies, but the board is concerned about the optics." "Is that why you needed a date tonight, to look stable during a corporate crisis?" "Partly," he admitted. "The board suggested I appear balanced and untroubled, a man with nothing to hide." Elena felt used. "So I was just corporate damage control?" Peter met her gaze. "Initially, yes, but tonight wasn't what I expected. You weren't what I expected." The car stopped outside her apartment building. "Thank you for tonight, Elena. I'll wire the payment tomorrow." Elena reached for the door handle, then paused. "For what it's worth, I don't think you're capable of corporate theft." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You don't know me well enough to make that judgment." "Maybe not," she agreed. "But I'm a pretty good judge of character." "Good night, Peter." As the Rolls-Royce pulled away, Elena wondered why she felt a pang of disappointment. This had always been a one-time arrangement, yet something about Peter Blackwood had gotten under her skin, something that $5,000 couldn't erase. Inside her apartment, Jess was waiting up. "Well, how was your date with Prince Charming?" Elena kicked off her heels, suddenly exhausted. "It wasn't a date, and I don't think the fairy tale comparison works. His life is complicated." "But," Jess prompted. "But nothing," Elena replied, knowing it was a lie. "It's over. Back to real life tomorrow." Her phone buzzed with a text. "Thank you for tonight. You were perfect. Peter." Elena stared at the message, wondering why such simple words made her heart race. She didn't reply. 3 days after the gala, Elena was back in her routine, delivering Thai food, attending online classes, and trying not to think about Peter Blackwood. The $5,000 had appeared in her account as promised, along with a bouquet of wildflowers and a handwritten note. "Thank you for your discretion, P." She was making a delivery to a law firm when her phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello?" she answered, balancing food bags as she waited for the elevator. "Elena, it's Vivian Wright, Mr. Blackwood's assistant." Elena's heart skipped. "Is something wrong?" "Mr. Blackwood requests another meeting. Are you available this afternoon?" 2 hours later, Elena found herself back in the Blackwood Tower, riding the express elevator to the 12th floor. This time, Vivian led her directly to Peter's office. Peter looked worse than before. His tie loosened, dark circles under his eyes. Financial reports and legal documents covered his desk. "Thank you for coming," he said, dismissing Vivian. "I need your help again." "Another gala?" Elena asked. "A series of events. The Valencia situation has escalated. They're claiming I personally stole their prototype during a corporate retreat last month." "That's absurd," Elena said before she could stop herself. Peter looked surprised by her immediate defense. "It is, but they have evidence, security footage of someone entering their R&D lab using my access card." "Couldn't you prove it wasn't you?" "I was alone in my cabin that night. No alibi." He ran his hand through his hair. "The board wants to settle, pay Valencia millions to make this disappear." "But if you're innocent—" "Innocence matters less than perception," Peter said bitterly, "which is why I need you again. My lawyers suggest I appear stable, a man in a relationship focused on the future rather than corporate sabotage." Elena crossed her arms. So I'm a prop in your legal strategy. A well-compensated prop, Peter countered. 10,000 per event, 5 events over the next month. Family dinner, charity auction, industry conference, my grandfather's birthday, and a weekend at my family's lake house. Elena's eyes widened. $50,000? The lake house would require 3 days of your time. I'll arrange coverage for your work schedule. It was a staggering sum, enough to finish her degree without loans. Yet Elena hesitated. Why me? You could hire an actress. Because you're genuine, Peter said simply. People believed we were together. My grandfather liked you, and frankly, I find your company refreshing. Against her better judgment, Elena agreed. I'll need details for each event, and we should establish more background for our relationship. Peter's relief was palpable. Vivian will coordinate everything. The first event is dinner at my parents' home this Friday. That Friday, Elena found herself in Peter's Tesla, heading toward Pacific Heights. She wore a simple navy dress, wondering if it was appropriate for dinner with the Blackwoods. Nervous? Peter asked, navigating the steep hills. Meeting the billionaire parents of my fake boyfriend? Not at all, Elena replied dryly. Peter chuckled. My father's intimidating but fair. Mother's trickier. She assesses everyone as a potential addition to the dynasty. Good thing this is temporary then. He glanced at her. Remember, we met through James Collins, been dating 3 weeks, and you're studying business management. All true except the met through James Collins part, Elena noted. The best lies contain truth, Peter said, as they pulled up to a stately Victorian mansion. Dinner was surprisingly informal. Richard Blackwood, a silver-haired man with Peter's intense eyes, grilled steaks on the terrace, while Margaret Blackwood, elegant in casual linen, mixed cocktails. Howard was there too, immediately drawing Elena into conversation. So, Elena, Margaret began over dinner, Peter says you're in food distribution. Currently, yes, while I complete my business degree. Self-made, Richard nodded approvingly. Admirable. How serious is this relationship? Margaret asked bluntly. Peter rarely introduces us to anyone. Eleanor nearly choked on her wine. Peter squeezed her hand under the table. We're taking things day by day, he answered smoothly. Elena values her independence, as do I. Howard winked at Elena. Translation, he's afraid of scaring you off by moving too quickly. Throughout dinner, Elena was struck by the family's dynamic. Despite their wealth, they teased each other, argued about politics, and behaved like any family. Peter was different here, more relaxed, quick to laugh, engaged in passionate debates with his father about corporate responsibility. Later, as Peter showed her the garden, Elena said, Your family's not what I expected. Disappointed they don't eat off solid gold plates? The opposite, she admitted. They're real. Peter stopped by a rose trellis. The public sees the Blackwood Empire. Few see the family behind it. He hesitated. Thank you for tonight. You were perfect. The genuine appreciation in his voice made Eleanor uncomfortable. This wasn't real, she reminded herself. Just business. The next event was a charity auction the following week. Elena wore a stunning blue gown, another Blackwood-funded addition to her growing collection of formal wear. As they entered the venue, Peter kept her close, his hand on her lower back. Photographers captured their arrival. Smile, he murmured. Page 6 is watching. Throughout the evening, they played their parts flawlessly. Peter introduced her to Silicon Valley elites as my Elena. She charmed tech pioneers with genuine questions about their innovations. During the auction, Peter bid $50,000 on a weekend getaway package. When it arrived at their table, he presented it to Elena. What are you doing? She whispered. Selling our story, he replied quietly. Also, you mentioned wanting to see Napa Valley. Elena blushed, remembering their conversation during the drive to his parents. She hadn't expected him to remember such a detail. Later that week, business journals featured photos of them at the auction, speculating about Peter's new relationship. The Valencia scandal was mentioned only in passing, exactly as his lawyers had hoped. The industry conference proved more challenging. Elena spent hours researching tech terminology to avoid embarrassment. Peter seemed impressed by her preparation. "You didn't need to study blockchain theory," he said as they entered the convention center. "I don't like feeling ignorant," she replied. "Besides, it's interesting." Throughout the day, Elena observed Peter in his element, commanding in panel discussions, generous with younger entrepreneurs seeking advice, brilliant when challenging outdated ideas. This wasn't the stressed executive from his office or the charming date from the gala. This was Peter in his natural habitat, passionate, innovative, and surprisingly ethical in his business philosophy. During a break, Eleanor overheard two executives talking. "Blackwood's girlfriend seems genuinely into him," one remarked. "Poor girl, probably doesn't know what she's getting into," the other replied. "Once the Valencia case breaks open, she'll run like Sophia did." Elena froze. What didn't she know? That evening in the hotel bar, while Peter networked, a woman approached Elena. "You're Blackwood's new girl, right?" She extended her hand. "Meredith Chen, Valencia Technologies." Elena shook her hand cautiously. "Elena Parker. Word of advice?" Meredith leaned closer. "Ask your boyfriend about Project Phoenix, and maybe reconsider your choice in men." Before Elena could respond, Meredith walked away, leaving her confused and unsettled. When Peter returned, he immediately noticed her expression. "What's wrong? What's Project Phoenix?" Elena asked directly. Peter's face hardened. "Who mentioned that to you?" "Meredith Chen," he cursed under his breath. "Valencia's playing dirty." He signaled for the check. "Not here." In their hotel suite, separate bedrooms, Peter had insisted, he paced while Elena waited for an explanation. "Project Phoenix is Valencia's next-generation neural interface, the prototype that was allegedly stolen." He stopped pacing. "Elena, I didn't take it. But someone used my credentials to access their lab during that retreat." "You're being framed," she said slowly. "Yes." His expression was grim. "And I'm beginning to think it was an inside job." "Sophia?" Peter shook his head. "She's vindictive but not stupid. This required intimate knowledge of both companies' security systems." Eleanor absorbed this. "Is that why we're doing all these appearances? Not just for your image, but to draw out whoever's behind this?" Peter looked at her with newfound respect. "Partly. My security team is watching reactions, monitoring who seems uncomfortable with our relationship. So I'm bait as well as a prop," Eleanor said, not sure whether to be angry or impressed. "You're my partner in this," Peter corrected. "And I should have told you everything from the beginning." Their eyes held for a long moment. Elena felt something shift between them, trust forming perhaps, or something more dangerous. "Get some rest," Peter finally said. "Tomorrow's another day of pretending." As Eleanor lay in bed that night, she wondered how much of their relationship was still pretense. The way Peter looked at her sometimes felt genuine. The way her heart raced when he touched her felt anything but fake. She was falling for him, a man who had hired her to play a role. A man whose life was so different from hers that any real relationship would be impossible. This was supposed to be a business arrangement. When had it become so complicated? Howard Blackwood's 80th birthday celebration was held at the family's estate in Sonoma, a sprawling property with vineyards and a view of rolling hills. Eleanor arrived with Peter, now comfortable in their practiced routine. After 3 weeks of public appearances together, their interactions had developed a natural rhythm. "You look beautiful," Peter said as they walked toward the party, his hand resting comfortably on her lower back. Elena wore a simple sundress, her own choice rather than a Blackwood-funded purchase. "Is that part of the script?" she asked lightly. Peter stopped, turning to face her. "No, that's just the truth." The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. Before she could respond, Howard spotted them. "There's my favorite couple," he called, arms outstretched. The afternoon unfolded pleasantly. Champagne flowing, jazz quartet playing, and Eleanor increasingly accepted by the Blackwood Circle. She chatted with Margaret about business school, discussed politics with Richard, and danced with Howard, who whispered, "You've been good for him." He smiles now. Elena noticed a man watching them intently, tall, sharp-featured, with calculating eyes. "Who's that?" she asked Peter quietly. "James Reynolds, our CFO," Peter replied, his voice tight. "One of the few who knew my access codes for the Valencia retreat. A suspect. Potentially. He's been pushing hardest for settling the case." Later, as Elena helped Margaret arrange birthday candles, the older woman said unexpectedly, "I haven't seen Peter this happy since before Sophia." "We're still getting to know each other," Elena demurred. Margaret gave her a knowing look. "He's not as complicated as he seems. He just needs someone who sees beyond the Blackwood name." As the sun set, Peter led Elena away from the party to a secluded garden terrace. "Thank you for today," he said, leaning against the stone balustrade. "For all of this." "It's my job, remember?" Elena replied, though the words felt hollow. Peter studied her face in the fading light. "Is that all it is to you? A job?" The question hung between them, dangerous and tempting. Elena knew the safe answer but couldn't bring herself to lie. "I don't know anymore," she admitted quietly. Peter stepped closer, his hand gently brushing her cheek. "Neither do I." The kiss, when it came, was nothing like the performative peck they'd shared for photographers. This was real, tender at first, then deepening with weeks of suppressed feelings. Elena's hands found their way to his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her fingertips. When they broke apart, Peter rested his forehead against hers. "This complicates things." "Understatement of the year," Elena whispered, trying to steady her breathing. "We should get back to the party," Peter said reluctantly, though his hand remained entwined with hers. The next morning, as they prepared to leave, Peter received an urgent call. Elena watched his expression darken. "What's wrong?" she asked as he hung up. "The Valencia case. They've filed formal charges of corporate espionage. The FBI is involved now." "That's insane. You didn't do anything." Peter's expression was grim. "The evidence suggests otherwise." "Someone's doing a thorough job of framing me." On the drive back to San Francisco, Peter explained the mounting evidence: security footage, electronic signatures, even emails supposedly from him discussing the prototype. "All fabricated but convincing," he said, knuckles white on the steering wheel. "My lawyers want me to take a leave of absence." "That makes you look guilty." "Looking guilty is better than dragging the company down with me." 2 days later, the news broke publicly. Business channels reported on the scandal, featuring photos of Peter and Elena together with captions speculating whether the delivery girl romance was a distraction tactic. Eleanor watched from her apartment, sick to her stomach. Her phone buzzed constantly, friends, co-workers, even her parents asking about her relationship with that corporate criminal. When Peter called, she answered immediately. "How are you holding up?" "Been better," he sounded exhausted. "Elena, we need to talk, not on the phone." They met at a quiet cafe in North Beach, neutral territory. Peter looked haggard, the strain of the investigation evident in the shadows under his eyes. "The board accepted my temporary resignation this morning," he said without preamble. Elena reached for his hand. "This is wrong. You need to fight back." "I am. My security team is investigating internally, but it's taking time." He squeezed her hand. "Eleanor, our arrangement, I think we should end it." Though she'd been expecting this, the words still stung. "Because I'm bad for your image now. Because I don't want you dragged into this mess," Peter corrected. "The press is already calling you a distraction tactic. The longer we're seen together, the more your reputation suffers." "So you're protecting me?" Elena asked skeptically. "Yes," he said simply. "And being selfish too. I care about you, too much to keep pretending." Elena felt tears threatening. "Who says we're pretending anymore?" Peter's expression softened. "What happened between us was real, but my life is imploding, Elena. I can't ask you to stand in the debris field. You're not asking. I'm choosing, she countered. I know you're innocent, Peter. He smiled sadly. Your faith means everything, but this is my fight. He slid an envelope across the table. The rest of your payment, plus a bonus. Elena left the envelope untouched. I don't want your money. Take it, he insisted. Consider it hazard pay for dating a corporate pariah. She reluctantly took the envelope, knowing this was his way of closing the door. What happens now? I focus on clearing my name. You go back to your life. And us? Peter looked at her with such longing it made her heart ache. There can't be an us until this is resolved, if it ever is. As they parted outside the cafe, Peter brushed his lips against her forehead, a goodbye that felt painfully final. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. Something about the case nagged at her. Why frame Peter specifically? Who benefited most from his downfall? On impulse, she opened her laptop and began researching Valencia Technologies. Hours later, a pattern emerged. Valencia's stock had plummeted after the prototype's disappearance, only to be quietly purchased in large blocks by a shell company. Following a hunch, she dug deeper into news archives. 3 years ago, Sophia Westbrook had briefly worked at Valencia before meeting Peter. Her current boyfriend, Jonathan Chase, was Valencia's VP of Research, the very division claiming theft. Elena grabbed her phone and typed a message to Peter. Check Sophia's connection to Valencia and Jonathan Chase's financial records. His reply came instantly. Already on it. How did you know? Business student, remember? Follow the money. The next morning, Peter called. My security team found something. Can you meet me at my grandfather's house? It's safer than my place right now. Howard's city residence was a brownstone in Pacific Heights. The elderly man welcomed Elena warmly. About time you two started working together properly. In Howard's study, Peter spread documents across an antique desk. Jonathan Chase has been funneling money through offshore accounts to buy Valencia stock. When the stolen prototype mysteriously reappears, their stock will soar. And Sophia? Elena asked. She introduced Jonathan to James Reynolds, our CFO, 3 months ago. Phone records showed dozens of calls between them. Elena connected the dots. Reynolds had your access codes. He could have taken the prototype and framed you. Using information Sophia provided about my habits, security protocols, everything. Peter's expression darkened. I trusted her completely when we were engaged. What's the plan? Elena asked. Peter's smile was wolfish. Spring the trap. Let them think they've won, then catch them red-handed. How can I help? Their eyes met across the desk. Partners now, not employer and employee. Peter reached for her hand. We're going to need one more public appearance, he said. The riskiest one yet. The Blackwood Industries annual shareholder meeting was held at the Four Seasons. Despite his leave of absence, Peter was expected to attend, a last, humiliating appearance before potentially facing criminal charges. Ready? Peter asked Elena as their car approached the hotel. She squeezed his hand. As ready as someone can be to help catch corporate thieves. Their plan was simple but dangerous. Elena would wear a wire, courtesy of Peter's private investigator. She would engage Sophia and Jonathan in conversation, steering toward the Valencia scandal, while Peter met with James Reynolds in a separate room, confronting him with the evidence they'd gathered. They made their entrance together, Peter stoic in a tailored suit, Elena elegant in a silver dress. Cameras flashed, capturing what the business press assumed might be their final public appearance as a couple. Blackwood and his delivery girl making one last stand. Elena overheard someone mutter. Peter leaned close. Ignore them. You know the truth. Elena spotted Sophia and Jonathan across the ballroom, watching them with barely concealed triumph. She felt Peter's hand tighten around hers. Reynolds just arrived, he murmured. I need to approach him now. Be careful with Sophia. She's more dangerous than she looks. I can handle her, Elena assured him. I've delivered to worse neighborhoods. With a subtle nod, Peter released her hand and moved toward the CFO. Eleanor took a deep breath and headed toward the bar where Sophia stood with Jonathan. "Elena," Sophia greeted her with false warmth, "I'm surprised to see you still standing by Peter, given the circumstances." "I believe in loyalty," Elena replied, accepting a champagne flute, "and innocence until proven guilty." Jonathan, handsome in a predatory way, smirked. "The evidence suggests otherwise. Peter's fingerprints are all over this scandal." "Convenient evidence," Eleanor remarked. "Almost too perfect, don't you think?" Sophia's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "Just that some people might have motives beyond justice. Valencia's stock, for instance, would soar once the prototype mysteriously reappears." Jonathan stiffened. "You should be careful making accusations." "Not accusations," Eleanor smiled, "just observations. Like how certain offshore accounts have been accumulating Valencia shares, or how a former employee might have inside knowledge of security protocols." Sophia's composure cracked. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? It's basic business strategy. Create a crisis, manipulate the market, profit from the recovery." Eleanor leaned closer. "Did Peter ever mention I'm studying corporate finance?" The color drained from Sophia's face. She grabbed Jonathan's arm. "We need to find James. Now." They hurried away exactly as planned. Elena casually followed, maintaining distance while activating the recording device in her clutch. Meanwhile, Peter had cornered Reynolds in a private conference room. "I know everything, James," he said without preamble. "The offshore accounts, the calls to Jonathan, the security breach using my credentials." Reynolds maintained a calm facade. "You're desperate, Peter. Grasping at conspiracy theories won't save you." "Not theories. Evidence." Peter placed a flash drive on the table. "Every transaction, every call, every suspicious movement during the Valencia retreat. My security team has been thorough." A flicker of unease crossed Reynolds's face. "You can't prove anything." "Can't I? The FBI seems interested in my findings. They're particularly curious about how the prototype will mysteriously reappear just as Valencia's stock has been secretly accumulated." The door burst open as Sophia and Jonathan rushed in, panic evident on their faces. "We need to leave," Sophia hissed at Reynolds. "The delivery girl knows." "Knows what?" Peter asked innocently. Jonathan froze, seeing Peter. "This is a private conversation. In my company's conference room? I don't think so." Peter gestured to the security cameras in the ceiling corners. "Everything you've said is being recorded. Has been for weeks, actually." Reynolds lunged for the door, but it opened before he reached it. 2 FBI agents entered, followed by Elena. "James Reynolds, Jonathan Chase, Sophia Westbrook," the lead agent announced. "We'd like you to accompany us to answer some questions about corporate espionage and market manipulation." As the agents led the trio away, Elena moved to Peter's side. "Did we just pull that off?" Peter's smile was equal parts relief and admiration. "We did. The FBI found the prototype in a storage unit rented under a shell company linked to Reynolds. It's over." The shareholder meeting proceeded with a very different tone. Instead of Peter's downfall, the chairman announced the thwarted conspiracy and Peter's complete exoneration. Applause filled the ballroom as Peter took the podium. "Blackwood Industries was founded on integrity," he told the shareholders. "Today, we've demonstrated our commitment to that value, thanks largely to one person who believed in the truth when others accepted lies." His eyes found Elena in the crowd, and the genuine emotion in his gaze made her heart skip. Hours later, after statements to federal agents and a press conference announcing Peter's reinstatement as CEO, they finally escaped to his penthouse apartment. The city lights sparkled below as they stood on his terrace, champagne in hand. "To justice," Peter toasted. "To the truth," Elena countered, clinking her glass against his. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said softly. "You risked everything for someone you barely knew." "I know enough," Elena replied. "I know you're honorable. I know you care about more than money and power. I know—" She hesitated, then continued. "I know I've fallen in love with you." The words hung between them, impossible to take back. Peter set down his glass and took hers, placing it beside his. His hands framed her face with infinite tenderness. "I fought my feelings for weeks," he admitted. "Told myself it was inappropriate. You were my employee, we came from different worlds, but none of that matters now." "What does matter?" she whispered. "That I love you too. That I want a real relationship, not a pretend one. No contracts, no payments, no performances." His kiss was a promise, passionate, yet achingly sweet. When they broke apart, Elena rested her head against his chest, hearing his steady heartbeat. "What happens now?" she asked. Peter smiled against her hair. "Now we start over, properly this time." "Hi." She looked up at him, extending her hand playfully. "I'm Elena Parker, food delivery person and business student." He took her hand, bringing it to his lips. "Peter Blackwood, CEO and former scandal subject. Would you like to have dinner with me sometime? A real date?" "I'd like that very much," she replied, eyes shining. As they stood together, embracing under the stars, Elena marveled at how a simple delivery job had changed her life forever. Some might call it luck or fate, but she knew better. It wasn't about delivering food to the right place at the right time. It was about two people who saw past appearances and expectations to find something genuine in a world of pretense. 1 year later, Elena stood alone at the edge of a lavish garden wedding reception, watching guests mingle under string lights and floral arrangements. Her emerald bridesmaid dress, chosen by the bride, rustled in the gentle evening breeze. The Blackwood Estate's gardens had been transformed into a fairy tale setting, with white roses and crystal decorations catching the golden sunset. "You look lost in thought," came a familiar voice behind her. Elena turned to find Peter approaching, handsome in his groomsman's tuxedo. His hair was still slightly disheveled, a habit no amount of corporate success could change. "Just taking it all in," she replied as he handed her a champagne flute. Howard and Elaine looked so happy. Across the garden, Howard Blackwood, now 81, danced slowly with his new bride, a 75-year-old retired professor he'd met at a charity function 6 months earlier. Their courtship had been swift and sweet, surprising the family but delighting everyone who witnessed their obvious joy. "Grandfather said life's too short to waste time once you find the right person," Peter said, slipping his arm around Elena's waist. Hard to argue with that logic. The past year had been transformative for them both. After the Valencia scandal was resolved, Peter had been fully reinstated as CEO with a renewed mandate from the board. Under his leadership, Blackwood Industries had launched a revolutionary ethical tech initiative, with Elena, who had completed her business degree, heading a new division focused on urban food security solutions. Their relationship had blossomed naturally, without the pressure of pretense. Elena had insisted on maintaining her modest apartment for 6 months, commuting to the Blackwood offices and declining Peter's offers of financial assistance. Only when she was confident in her professional standing had she finally moved into his penthouse. "Your speech was beautiful," Elena said, referring to Peter's toast as Howard's best man. Even Margaret cried. Speaking of mother, Peter nodded toward the dance floor, where Margaret Blackwood was deep in conversation with Elena's parents. The Parkers had flown in from Chicago for the wedding, initially intimidated by the Blackwood wealth, but quickly won over by their genuine warmth. "Think they're comparing embarrassing childhood stories about us?" Elena asked. "Undoubtedly," Peter laughed. "Though I'm more concerned about what Jess is telling my father. They've been talking tech startups for an hour." Elena's former roommate had become a surprising addition to their inner circle, her kindergarten teacher's perspective grounding their sometimes too corporate worldview. Richard Blackwood had taken a particular liking to her straightforward manner. As the reception continued, Eleanor was struck by how seamlessly two worlds had merged, her modest upbringing and Peter's privileged one finding unexpected harmony. Former delivery colleagues chatted with tech executives. Her professor was debating economic theory with Blackwood board members. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Peter asked as they swayed together on the dance floor. "I was just thinking about that first night," Elena replied. "The gala where we pretended to be a couple. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here?" "Honestly? No," Peter admitted. "I thought you were a temporary solution to a PR problem. The most beautiful, intriguing solution I'd ever seen, but still temporary. And now," his eyes softened, "now I can't imagine my life without you." The music shifted to a slower melody as Howard and Elaine took center stage for another dance. The elderly groom's eyes shone with happiness as he held his bride. "They make it look so simple," Elena observed. "Maybe because at their age they know what matters," Peter replied. "Not money or status or what others think, just finding someone who sees you, really sees you, and loves you anyway." And as the evening progressed, Howard and Elaine prepared to depart for their honeymoon. Before leaving, the new Mrs. Blackwood threw her small bouquet directly at Elena, who caught it reflexively. "Subtle, grandfather," Peter called, prompting laughter from the guests. Howard winked. "Just speeding things along. At my age, I can't afford to wait for you two to figure it out." After the newlyweds departed, the celebration continued under the stars. Elena kicked off her heels, dancing barefoot on the grass with Peter, neither caring about propriety or appearances. Later, as the party wound down, Peter led her to a secluded corner of the garden, the same spot where they'd shared their first real kiss a year earlier. "Remember this place?" he asked, stopping beneath a rose-covered trellis now illuminated by tiny white lights. "Of course," Elena smiled. "This is where you finally admitted you liked me for more than my delivery efficiency." Peter laughed, then grew serious. "This is where everything changed for me, where I stopped pretending and started being honest, with you and with myself." He took her hands in his. "Elena Parker, you came into my life as part of a business arrangement, but you've become the most important person in it. You saw me at my worst, stressed, accused, nearly defeated, and you stood by me anyway." Elena's heart began racing as Peter reached into his pocket and lowered himself to one knee. "I promised myself I wouldn't do this at my grandfather's wedding," he said, opening a small velvet box to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by diamonds. "But standing here, seeing you in this place where we first became real to each other, I couldn't wait another day." Tears filled Elena's eyes as Peter continued. "I don't want to pretend anymore, not about anything. I want to build a life with you, face every challenge together, and wake up beside you every morning. Elena Parker, will you marry me?" Time seemed to stand still as the garden around them faded away. In that moment, there was only Peter, the man who had hired her to play a part and ended up capturing her heart. "Yes," she whispered, then laughed through her tears. 1,000 times yes, as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Cheers erupted from nearby. They turned to find both families watching from the terrace, Howard and Elaine having secretly returned, Margaret and Richard beaming with approval, Elena's parents wiping away tears. "Were you all in on this?" Elena called to them. "Of course," Howard replied unapologetically, though Peter was supposed to wait until tomorrow. Always was impatient, that boy. Later that night, in the quiet of Peter's, now their, penthouse, they stood on the terrace overlooking the city lights. Elena's ring caught the moonlight as Peter held her close. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a fake relationship born of necessity to a love that had survived scandal, separation, and the merging of vastly different worlds. "Just one," she replied with a smile. "I should have charged you more for that first gala. Clearly, I undervalued my services." Peter's laughter echoed in the night air. "I'd have paid any price to meet you, Elena Parker. You're the best investment I ever made. And you," she said, rising on tiptoes to kiss him, "are the most unexpected delivery I ever made." 6 months later, Elena stood in the bridal suite of the same garden where Peter had proposed. Her wedding dress, elegant but not extravagant, had been chosen with Margaret's help, a perfect blend of simplicity and sophistication. Jess adjusted the veil one last time. "Ready to marry your billionaire?" Elena smiled, thinking of how far they'd come. "He's not a billionaire to me. He's just Peter, the man who hired you to pretend to be his girlfriend and ended up falling madly in love with you," Jess reminded her. "Still the best rom-com plot I've ever heard." A knock at the door revealed Howard, dapper in his tuxedo, ready to walk her down the aisle at her father's insistence. "Your father says I'm partially responsible for this union, so I should share in the honor." As the wedding march began, Elena took Howard's arm. "Any last-minute advice?" The elderly man patted her hand. "Just remember what makes your relationship special. You two found truth in the middle of pretense. Most people spend their lives doing the opposite." Walking down the aisle, Elena saw only Peter waiting for her beneath an arch of white roses. His eyes shone with unshed tears as he watched her approach. In that moment she knew with absolute certainty that their love story, however unconventionally it had begun, was the most authentic thing in her life. When they were finally pronounced husband and wife, Peter whispered against her lips, "No more pretending." "No more pretending," Eleanor agreed as they sealed their vows with a kiss. Their reception was a joyful blend of both worlds. Elena's delivery colleagues dancing alongside tech executives, her parents laughing with the Blackwoods, Howard and Elaine cutting a rug on the dance floor despite their age. As evening fell, Elena found herself standing in the same spot where Peter had proposed, now watching their loved ones celebrate. "Happy?" Peter asked, joining her with 2 champagne flutes. "Beyond words," she replied, accepting the glass. "Though I'm still wondering how I ended up here. One day, I'm delivering pad thai. The next, I'm marrying the heir to Blackwood Industries." "One correction," Peter said, his expression earnest. "You're not marrying the heir to anything. You're marrying a man who loves you for exactly who you are. A brilliant, compassionate woman who saw past my name and fortune to the person underneath." "That person is pretty wonderful," Eleanor admitted, touching his cheek. "Even if he did hire me under false pretenses." "Best business decision I ever made," Peter said, drawing her close. "Though I think my grandfather would say it was more than business. He'd call it destiny." "Maybe it was," Elena agreed, looking out at their merged families and friends. "Or maybe it was just 2 people brave enough to stop pretending and start being real with each other." As they rejoined their celebration, Elena thought about the journey that had brought them here, from a fake relationship created for appearances to a genuine love built on trust, respect, and shared values. Their story had begun with pretense, but it would continue with truth, a love that had weathered scandal, overcome differences, and proved that sometimes the most unexpected connections are the ones that change our lives forever. Under the stars, surrounded by those they loved, Peter and Elena Blackwood began their life together, no longer pretending, but living their own authentic happily ever after.